What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. Rather, knives overview slash review. These are three variants of the brand new Ferrum Forge Archbishop 2.0. Really excited about these. I'm really happy to have three variants. These were actually provided to me by the pass-around group that I'm involved with. So they came from the manufacturer originally, so I do appreciate that. As usual, I will be giving these a fair and honest review. Before we get into this, just a couple of things. Number one, if you're not aware, I have an Instagram. You can follow me at metal_complex. I hope to be doing some Instagram-specific giveaways in the near future. So if you are not following me, I urge you to, so you can be a part of those. Number two, Slicey Dicey tagged me in a video where he wants me to pick 5 knives that are under 1,000, but I have to spend at least 900. I'm super pumped to do that. I'm really excited about that. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what they're going to be. I am going to do that video. That video is going to be on Saturday. So if you guys wanted to know if I was aware of it, I am. It's coming on Saturday. Next up, if you are not subscribed to me, I'm a very enthusiastic knife guy. I upload at least 7 times a week. So if you want consistent knife content, this might be the channel for you if you don't mind the sound of my voice. And lastly, I still have this wonderful knife to give away the moment that I hit 50 patrons. We are currently at 23 patrons, so moving along nice and quick there. If you want more details on how that's going to work, just follow the link in the description to my Patreon, and you can read the bold text. Either way, I urge you to at least go just check out my Patreon. There's some fun stuff and there's some fun tiers. So I want you guys to take a look. You do not have to be a Patreon to enter that giveaway once it officially becomes a giveaway knife. It's basically, that's just what's going to happen when I hit 50 patrons. Also, I'm going to be surprising you guys with possibly a couple of other knives between now and the time that I hit 50. So if you want to support, even if you just want to join the $1 tier, that counts, and you'll get a free shout out. You can make it whatever you want as long as it's appropriate for YouTube. Anyways, let's go ahead and move into the review here. For the sake of space on my tabletop here, I'm going to move these two off screen just for a moment. They are going to come back. We're going to go ahead and get some measurements here. Overall length of the Ferrum Forge Archbishop, I'm going to have a problem saying that the entire time, 2.0 is going to be just barely shy of 8 inches. It looks to be like 7.8, 7.9 inches. You can call it 8 inches if you want. From tip to scale, you're looking at exactly 3.5 inches. The cutting edge is exactly 3 inches. That is a fantastic sweet spot for a lot of people. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons here real quick. Up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Reptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. So you can see there, once again, that's like the best size comparison. Maybe it's because the knives that I review, that I gravitate towards, are all around this mark, but the Ritter Hogue is such a fantastic example of not only a quality tool, but an excellent size comparison, you know. And it's I think, case in point, a lot of knives that are really, really good are kind of similar silhouette and similar size to the Ritter Hogue, and also profile. Last but not least here, the Spyderco Delica. Spyderco Delica coming in at 7 inches. Quick little bit of news. I'm going to be replacing the Spyderco Delica in the near future with something else. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I think I need to update my small size comparison knife. Let's go ahead and get an example of the action on this guy. This is a frame lock knife with some wonderfully smooth action. Nice snappy deployment. The detent ball is not only the right heaviness, but it's also in the right place when you know, in coordination with where the blade falls when you move that lock bar out of the way. We'll talk more about that here. Let's go ahead and get a weight on this guy. We'll weigh all three because we've got 3 different patterns here. Weight on the contoured one here, 4.73 ounces. Let's go ahead and weigh it again. 4.73 ounces. There is some milling on the inside here. If we take a look. Oh, there's not milling on this one. There is not milling on this one. I'm sorry. I was thinking about these other two. Let's go ahead and weigh this one. Chevron pattern coming in at 4.59 ounces. We'll go ahead and get it again just to make sure. Roughly the same weight. Or a little bit less than the contoured one. And this one here, also 4.55. 4.52. So the ones with the milling obviously are going to weigh just a little bit less here. So you can see now, these are not the only three styles. As far as I know, they only come in these three colors. There is one more pattern that I've seen. What we've got here is flat on the chevron. So this top part's flat, and you've got some milling there on the chevron pattern. We've got this one, the name of this escapes me again, but there's some excess milling here, and this one's again flat. And then we have this one, which is plain, but it's contoured. And it's enough of a contouring to where you do notice it in hand versus the other ones here. There's one more pattern that I've seen, and it's kind of like a, it almost looks like dragon scales, and then there's like a faux bolster kind of setup. I really like that, except I think in my opinion, the patterning is a little bit too spaced apart. I would prefer, you guys know that I like kind of a knurling or a diamond pattern texture. Like if you look at the titanium scales on an XM18 or the available titanium scales for XM18s, that close together texture pattern is really nice, and it provides, in my opinion, on titanium, meaningful traction. So I think they got close there. It just wasn't exactly what I would have looked for aesthetically. So if you guys want to know which one I'd pick, I can tell you right now. I'm going to get into this, but it would be this one right here. Let's go ahead and get this deployed and talk about the anatomy of the knife. What we have here is a very heavily tumbled, dark cement finished or working finished M390 drop point blade. Let's see right here. Yeah, it says M390 right there. And then you've got this nice generous opening right here, which can be used both for a standard thumb flick. If I can get my finger in there, I was just doing it. It's Every reviewer you guys watch will be like, gosh, it's so hard to get this to deploy at this angle. It's because, there we go. It's because the way that I'm standing and the way that my camera's angled and how I have to hold the knife versus how I do in reality, it's so much harder. It's so weird and so foreign. Now, the reverse flick is incredibly easy to do with that, which I think is more so what it was designed for. And of course, the flipper tab works just fine. So, really, really like that cutout there. Anyways, moving down here to this choil. This choil is one of the best choils that I've ever experienced on a folding knife. You know, it does take out an enormous chunk of the cutting edge, whereas the blade is a 3.5 inch blade. You've got a 3-inch cutting edge, so you are sacrificing quite a bit of cutting edge, but it's not to the point, honestly, where think about where the blade would be if you didn't have this. It'd be right here. So you're losing, I don't know, you're losing half an inch of cutting edge. But what is it that you're going to be doing with this knife where you have to have that additional half inch, right? When you can't do that now that the choil's there. I don't know anything meaningful, or at least in the terms of regular EDC tasks, nothing. You know, nothing's getting in the cutting path anyway, either way, because this is a slot. It's not a thumb stud situation. So, but anyways, given that this flipper tab is kind of angled forward, you do need a lot of room in here to make sure that your finger is not running the risk of coming up on this sharpened part of the edge. So it is nice and deep. I can get, with a choil, a proper choil, I don't want to be, to me, this isn't choked up. To me, this is choked up. That's what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to get the meat of my finger in there and not feel the tip of that running up against my finger and making me feel like, am I going to cut myself? This does not make me feel like I'm going to cut myself. And I really, really appreciate that. It's nice and deep and big. So whether you have small fingers, medium fingers, or even some larger fingers, I think people with really big XL hands are not going to be able to do that. I would say I've got medium, large to large hands. You know, I wear an XL glove, but everybody knows, you know, anybody who's used work gloves knows that XL glove doesn't mean much. It means you've got a deep, fairly large hand. I can choke up on this, and I really like that. Blade stock thickness looks to be Once again, about the same thickness as the PM2, perhaps a little bit thicker, somewhere around 145 thousandths to maybe 150 thousandths. It does come down to a very nice cutting edge. I'm not feeling any imperfections on this particular edge. These have been passed around, but you know, I don't think any of them have been used. But it does feel fairly, you know, it's not like laser beam thin behind the edge, but in terms of what you're going to be using it for, generic EDC tasks or maybe some outside work, it's a perfect edge. No issues there whatsoever. Moving down to the frame, you can see here, this is all the same, basically the same as the blade in terms of stonewashing. You've got some heavy dark stonewashing on there, a nice simple polished Torx head pivot. Moving down here, you have flat Torx head screws that are, I think, unfortunately, that little tiny size that I don't like. And yeah, they are. They're that little tiny size. I don't like that, but that's fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's not a deal breaker anyway. You can see here that while the scales are unmilled and fairly thick, the contouring gives the impression of a thinner knife. The contouring is also done really, really well. This is perfect contouring. You've got nice chamfering on the edges there. You know, the scales feel robust, but at the same time incredibly comfortable in hand, and that smooth finish is really, really nice. Moving back to the backspacer, you have what I think is a perfect backspacer. It takes up roughly half the length or half the body of the knife. The texturing is met flush with the scales, so the dips are underneath. It's not raised up. That means that you can still benefit from the texturing, but it's not, you know, it's not obtrusive. Like if you're doing lots and lots and lots of cutting with this, that backspacer is not going to create a situation where it starts to bother your hand, but the traction is still there. You also have very meaningful traction up on the spine of the blade, the jimping, and no jimping down here on the frame, which means you can benefit from this, but it's not going to bother you if you're just going to flip it over and over and over again and play with it like a lot of us like to do, and run your fingers into the frame down here. So that's just fine. Moving over to this side, you have a very simple but very effective pocket clip, and everything's the same except you have the frame lock. You also have another adjustment head for the pivot. I don't know if the barrel is D-shaped. I don't know if you're going to have a free spinning situation. I did not take this apart. Somebody else, I'm sure, will have done that. But when that happens, you basically just need two Torx tools, and you just stick one in one side, and you kind of, you know, do that. We've all done that. The pocket clip is going to carry the knife about right here. Not deep carry, but it's definitely not a shallow carry either. I really like the slot right here. It gives just enough room for your finger to catch and give a little bit of additional pull. It is pretty tall. It's kind of a thick pocket clip, but it does go over the seam of your pants really easily. It's really, really easy to get this thing in and out of the pocket. I have no issue with that whatsoever. The retention's there. It's definitely not coming out of the pocket. I always do that on camera. Like I put it in my pocket and pull it back out, and you guys can't see it. You're just going to have to take my word for it. Sorry about that. I need like a pair of pants that I can just stick it in on camera and pull it back out. Yeah, the pocket clip works. I think it fits with the design of it. It's not a fat clip, but it's not a skinny clip either. It just works. You do have a steel lock bar insert with an over travel stop. You can see here lockup is coming in at about 25%, and the knife is perfectly centered. I mean, perfectly centered. These knives are built by We, by the way. So this is a combination We and Ferrum forged knife. So this knife is made in China, but it's made with the you know, the expectation of quality, the exact expectation of quality that you would have with any We knife is built to those standards. Excellent, excellent fit and finish. No lock stick, no blade play, up, down, left, or right. That's just what you're gonna get. So it's just excellent. Ergonomics, whether you're back here or whether you're up here, this is a 7.9-inch-ish knife that is very, very easy to get a hold of in any position, or if you want to hold it upside down like this, whatever. This is just comfortable, you know? Let you guys take a look at some of these other ones up close. I do like the bronze, the dark bronze finish on this. I'm just not a fan of this milling. Some people might like that. You can see there that goes all the way through, so that's why you're shaving about a 1/4 inch off the overall weight there. It does look really nice. I really appreciate how Ferrum Forge puts their logo on the frame. It's just nice, you know, and they leave everything off the blade except the M390 mark, which is great. Action feels great on that one as well. I also like how they're doing the chevron patterning on this one, you know, and that while the dark blue looks good, it just wouldn't be my first pick, you know. Same thing. between all these knives, you know, when I unboxed them, I said, you know, there's like microscopic differences in the action, but all of these have excellent fall shut action. Do this one too. And excellent deployment. They all feel the same. The only difference is the little bit of, you know, milling they've done in the frame and the anodization, and that's it. Consistency on these guys across the board is just great. You can see the lockup's the same on the bronze one. Centering is the same. Lockup is the same on the blue one. And the centering is also the same. That's great. That's awesome. I'm happy to see that type of consistency. I have to assume that that's just going to be the case. I mean, Ferrum Forge and we kind of have that reputation where it's like they're not companies where you need to worry about as nearly as much as other companies, some other companies, the quality control. You just don't have to worry about that. You're generally safe with Ferrum Forge. So here's my final thought on this knife. These two are great. I'm glad that they offered like different, you know, handle patterns and colors and things like that. That's great. Get the flavor you want. This thing is darn near perfect. Like, you guys have heard me describe, if you watched my Quest for the Perfect Folding Knife series, you've heard me describe what I consider to be a perfect folding knife, kind of. You know, I'm dancing around it. This is super close to that. Super close to a perfect folding knife for me. These run $275. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to pay for a knife. Now, I'm going to reference another video. When I did my first video on the ZT-0562, I called it the Gateway Folder. And I've got a special place for that knife in my heart because while it is past the line of what I would call diminishing returns in an American production knife, which I also have a video on, it's a knife that brings me a lot of joy. Whether you go for the G10 version at $200, you go for the carbon fiber version at $260, it used to be $240, or the full titanium one at $280, that's a knife that feels good. It feels like flawless execution. I want a titanium frame lock flipper with an over treble stop, with a steel lock bar insert in a good steel. You are going to get that in the 0562. While there have been a bajillion titanium frame lock flipper knives that have come into existence with excellently tuned detent, blah, 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 they've all been, I've felt a lot of good ones, but I'm like, yeah, I'd still rather have the 0562. Like, that's still like my winner in terms of a production, you know, Hinder knives aside, the Gen 6 Hinder XM18 aside, because it's in a different caliber. It's almost a mid-tech caliber of knife. A lot of people say, no, it's still a product. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is in this caliber, it's like everything in my mind always gets referenced back to the ZT-0562. I'm gonna make a bold statement here. This knife right here, this is the only knife that I can say is, in my mind, as good or better than the 0562 in terms of what I want from a production titanium frame lock. It is truly excellent. You know, aside from just being like, God, you know, you guys would have knocked it out of the park if you'd have done the full bolster thing and done some diamond patterning texture here, just on this side, not on this side, because you want the pocket clip to ride over that smooth titanium. Had they done that, it literally would have been perfect. I mean, this thing would have been Excalibur to me. This is phenomenal. Is $275 a lot of money? Yes. Are you getting nearly a perfect knife for $275? Yes, absolutely. I can 100% recommend this knife. This is excellent. I mean, I can't tell you guys, between the fidget factor, being able to deploy it in all these different ways, you know, especially the reverse flick. This is such a good reverse flick knife. I mean, it feels so good. That detent is tuned just right. Oh, that click into place. No detent lash whatsoever. You guys have heard me talk about that. Excellent lockup. And this, for those of you who like to do this, kick it down here. It passes the detent ball. So no double clutch. I mean, execution on this thing, you guys, is just great. Plus the footprint, the overall footprint. Let's look at it closed up against some popular carry knives like the PM2 and the Ritter Hogue. Both the PM2 and the Ritter Hogue have a bigger footprint overall than the Ferrum Forge Archbishop 2.0 here. And on top of that, you know, the Ritter Hogue's close in weight. I know the PM2 weighs a lot less, but, you know, relatively, these are all, you know, close to the same weight. Take a look at the rat closed up. Awesome. Let's take a look at even the Spyderco Delica closed up. I mean, these two closed up. I mean, the Delica is a much smaller knife in terms of weight, but in terms of like height and footprint, you know, it's not too far off. This guy's thicker, but I mean, take a look here. If you're one of those people who's like, I'm not so much concerned with weight, but just like the footprint, I mean, the Delica is still a smaller knife, but I just wanted to point that out. They've managed to get so much knife, such an enjoyable knife, into such a small package. I love this. I mean, honestly, guys, this is one of the very best knives out there in this price range. Like, if you're looking at around the $250 mark for a pocket knife, this is the one. I mean, I always tell people, like, when people ask me, like, I really like this titanium frame lock flipper thing, you know, like, especially people getting into knives. They're like, I really like that. Like, what's the one you'd recommend? I always say, go for the ZT-0562. That's the one that's going to give you the feeling of the best bang for your buck, right? And it's also an excellent tool. That's not to say that there aren't other ones out there, but like that feeling, that inexplicable feeling of like, you know, corresponding quality to value to what you expect when you get the knife, nothing else has ever quite been able to match that in my mind until this guy. You spend $275 on this guy. Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's going to sting when you see it leave your PayPal or your bank account. But when you get this knife and you feel it, you're going to be happy. You are definitely going to be happy. Get the one that you want. But I'm telling you, if I had just spent $275 on that guy right there, oh man, I would be so happy just opening it up for the first time and being like, God dang, the execution on this knife is just wonderful. They nailed it here, guys. This is just beautiful. And you know what's cool? It's great. It'll give you that sense of satisfaction carrying it around. It'll give you that sense of preparedness no matter where you're carrying it. But it also has a look about it that's kind of gentlemanly. But it's also has that kind of hard work look. And it'll fill those roles. You need a simple EDC knife? Yeah, it'll do that. You need a knife that you can use a little bit harder? It's also going to do that. By the way, it's running on bearings. So it's going to be something where you're going to have to pay attention and clean those things out. But listen, compressed air is going to work just fine for that. In my opinion, you run bearings dry, so it's gonna serve that purpose just fine. And yeah, it's not milled out, but not having pockets on the inside, milled pockets, it keeps the dust and debris and stuff from settling in there. So being able to simply take a cloth and just wipe it clean is really easy. This is a really nice tool, and it's done well. I love this. I honestly, you know, I can't pick it apart. Here's the other cool thing: left-handed or right-handed. You've got a tip-up option. Yeah, the frame lock itself is for right hand, but I'm not left-handed, and I can manipulate this frame lock just fine. You just have to kind of turn it a little bit to do that. But as far as manipulation with the left hand, yeah, you're going to be okay. I wonder if I can do a left-handed, I don't want to put a scratch on this. I'm going to take my ring off. I wonder if I can do this left-handed. I have never tried to do this before. That finger is so weak. I can do it. That was my first one ever. I can do that. Listen, you're going to have to take my word for it. That was the first time I've ever done a left-handed reverse flick, and I can do it on that knife. That's how well that is executed. Oh, bravo. This is just excellent. It's going to be going on my favorite knives ever playlist because it does bring me that X Factor joy. And it's also going to be going on my most recommended knives playlist. If you guys are on the fence about this, pick it up. You won't be disappointed. That is truthfully going to be about it for today's episode, guys. If you enjoyed this video, or you at least found it entertaining or informative, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.